bubble sort. If you look at insertion, so you would be starting with 2. 2 is already sorted. Then you and then 1 comes in. So I mean, then 1 would get interchanged with 2. Then 3 comes in. I mean, already sorted. 4 comes in, already sorted. So what you did was only 1 swap and a total of like 4 of these comparisons. So I mean, in general, about the selection sort, I mean, so selection sort is always n square, because in every iteration you want to select the say you want to select the maximum or the minimum depending on if you want it to be in the ascending order or in the descending order. So every iteration goes through. So let's say you are at iteration I, so you would be having n minus I comparisons minimum. So if you sum it up, a total of order of n square comparisons would be there in selection sort. So I mean, selection sort is like the worst performing algorithm for also, I mean, for a nearly sorted array. So the best algorithm for that is like insertion sort. Now, just a variant for this question: what if your algorithm was exactly sorted? Which one is the best algorithm? So if your algorithm was, say, exactly sorted, so let's say if this is the array, you would observe that bubble sort would do 3 comparisons. And in the next iteration, because there were no swaps made, it would stop. And I'm talking about the modified bubble sort. If you look at insertion in this particular example, so it would do 3 comparisons again. Then talking about, I mean, selection is always the worst because it will still go for searching the maximum and the minimum in like all the arrays. So if you're already having a, I mean, sorted array, so I mean, both insertion and the bubble sort, they work equivalently well. So I mean, that is where I mean, I just want to stop for now. So this is the basic idea. I mean, how your different algorithms fare across, the different possible scenarios. Now, why we discussed sorting was like because this sorting is used in some, popular search problems. So I'll hand over the session to Dr. Gupta, and she will discuss a few of these search problems and the different optimized version of these search problems. So yeah, Gupta, please continue.
Hi everyone. So now we'll be look at some basic problems which you would have already seen in data structures, but what we'll do is with time we'll introduce slight tweaks in them and then we'll try to solve them. Let's start with this very simple problem here. Finding the minimum or maximum element in an array. So I think all of you know how to do that. So what is the time complexity of this? So when I'm talking about time complexity here, let's initially talk about the exact number of steps, or let's say the exact number of comparisons. So what will be the exact number of comparisons if I want to find, let's say, max in an array? So it can be done for both max as well as min. So generally what we do for finding the max of an array, we take max to be, let's say, some very large number, or we can also set it to this first element here, which is a of 0. Then we have a scan over this array, and in this, while doing this scan, whenever you find an element which is bigger than this max, you replace this max by that corresponding element. So you end up doing n-1 comparisons here in this particular case. I'm talking here about the exact number of comparisons. Okay. Okay. So here what we were doing here, in order to find the max, we were using this additional variable which is called max here. So what if I want to do it without using any additional space? Let's say I'm writing a code for an application where space is very costly. Can you think of a way in which I can still find the max of this entire array, the maximum element in this array, but without using any additional space? We have already done this.
Ma'am, if time is not a constraint, we can just sort the array and then the last element will be the maximum element.
Okay, if time is not the constraint, we can sort this array. So how much time sorting will take?
If you use the best sorting algorithm of n log n.
So it's order of n log n, right? Can we do it in better than n log n?
We can just compare each element to the first. Okay, no.
Yeah, you are on the right track. Okay, so the answer to this is anyone wants to say anything?
Ma'am, can we use bubble sort for only one iteration and print out the last element?
Perfect. So that is the answer. We are going to do bubble sort, but only for one iteration, right? So what we are doing here is, instead of using any additional element, I compare this 12 with 1. So both of these get swapped here. Then you compare 12 with 8. Again, these two get swapped. And again, so now there is no swapping. Then you swap this 18 with 2. So 18 comes here, so on and so forth. So at the end, this 80 will come at the last location. And this element at your last location, it is your maximum element. What can be one possible drawback of this approach? So what is the benefit if we are using additional space and if we are not using additional space? So here, see, in this particular case, we have just concentrated on the number of comparisons. So here also, what will be your number of comparisons? It will be n minus 1 comparisons in this case also, right? We are not caring about the swapping here. But assume that your application is such that swapping is costly as compared to comparison. So you would want to use an auxiliary space. However, if swapping is very less costly and your space is more costly, then you can go by this particular approach where you end up doing a lot of swappings without using any particular space. Okay. Now let's slightly tweak this question. Can we think of some other method to figure out this minimum or maximum element? So let me stay at the maximum element. So we are talking about particular maximum element in an array. So we have already seen we can do it without using additional space. Can we think of some other strategies to find the max? Except this linear search we have talked about. So a number of algorithms in data structures, a large number of algorithms, they use this technique called divide and conquer. So can you think of a divide and conquer kind of technique here to figure out the maximum element in here in this array? Can I divide this problem into sub-problems and then try to solve those individual sub-problems again to get the maximum element? So what we can do is, there is this algorithm called tournament algorithm. I'll tell you its exact use, its exact benefit in an upcoming slide. So it's a divide and conquer strategy. So what you can do here is, you can start comparing your elements pairwise. So I'm going to tell you an algorithm to do this in a divide and conquer approach, and then let's try to figure out how many comparisons did it do. What we do in the first step, you compare these two elements and figure out which is the max. So here your 12 is the max. Do it with these two elements. You get 18 here to be the max. Do it here, 11 is the max. Do it here, 80 is the max, right? And I again continue in the same way. So the next time I'm going to compare these two elements, figure out which is the max, compare these two elements, figure out which is the max. And at the end, you compare these two elements and 80 comes out to be your max element, right? How many comparisons do you think we did here? Any guesses?
Log n comparisons.
Okay, did we do log n comparisons? So log n definitely is the height of this tree kind of structure which is being formed here. Log n is the height of this tree. But let's think about how many comparisons did we do. So let's say the size of this array is n here, right? How many comparisons did I do at this first step here? So for every 2 elements, I'm doing one comparison. So one comparison for these two, one comparison for these two, one comparison for these two, so on and so forth. So at the first step, I have done n by 2 comparisons. So at this first step, we have done n by 2 comparisons, right? And we got n by 2 elements over here. How many comparisons did we do at the next step? Again, one comparison per 2 elements. Here are n by 2 elements I have. So how many comparisons I did in the next step? So at every step, the number of comparisons I am doing is half the number of elements, because I'm comparing these elements in pair. So when I have n by 2 elements here, in the next step, you end up doing n by 4 comparisons. In the next step, you end up doing n by 8 comparisons. So how many total comparisons? So it's going to be n by 2 plus n by 4 plus n by 8 plus n by 16, so on and so forth. What is this? So if you apply the formula of an arithmetic progression here. So let's do that quickly. So this is n by 2, 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 4, so on and so forth. What is the summation of this series here? So if you place that formula a by 1 minus r here, it will come out to be 1 by 1 by 2, which is going to be n. Actually, even if you use this tournament method to just find the max or minimum element in an array, it will still require n comparisons. And that is obvious, right? We cannot rule out any element. So when we are trying to figure out the maximum element in an array, definitely we'll have to check for each and every element. So it's going to take order of n time. Okay. So we have looked at 2 methods of doing this. So one was a linear scan where to find this max,
Ma'am?
just, yes.
Just a doubt, ma'am. Are we going to store the maximum of every 2 elements in somewhere, ma'am?
So there are many ways of doing that. So I'm currently not focusing on storage, but definitely, so you can store these elements in a separate array. So when you compare these 12 and 1, you can store them in separate array and you can modify these, or even you can make it in place. How can you make it in place? So you can have a logic like this. When I'm comparing these first 2 elements here, so I'll keep the maximum at this location. So I'll use, let's say this is location 0, this is location 2, this is location 4, 6. Let's say I'm going to use the even locations in my array to keep the max. Or you can even swap them here, right, in the first iteration. So that your max element in these 2 pairs always ends up at the first location over here. So when I compare 12 and 1, it remains here. When you compare 8 and 18, so you can do a swapping here. So that 18 comes here and 8 comes here. Similarly, 11 and 2. 80 and 38, they are at the correct place. What you can do at the next time, so I know that the elements at these locations 0, 2, 4 and 6 are my current maximum. So I'm now going to compare the 0th element with the second one, and this 4th element over here with the 6th one, right? And again, when I do this, so see here 0 is, this 12 is greater than 8, I keep it here. In this particular case over here, let's say I had 11 and 80 here. So 80 comes here and 11 moves here. So now I know that next I'll have to compare the elements which are at the location 0 and 4. So on and so forth, you can continue this. So the storage thing, you can decide on your own.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. We can even use a combination of these 2 approaches. So I'll just quickly go over it. So if you have looked at it carefully, what has happened in the when I was using this tournament method, in the first particular iteration, we got these maximum elements from over here, right? These were the maximum elements. So it took n by 2 comparisons here. And we have seen that the overall complexity, overall number of comparisons was n. It means that below this, when I'm performing this tournament algorithm, I'm going to have n by 2 comparisons after this particular step. So what can I do? Even instead of going into a tournament way after this particular step, what I can do is, for the first step, I can run it in this particular way, pairwise. And as the second step, I can just run a linear scan on these elements. So you have n elements, you apply a tournament algorithm and obtain n by 2 elements, amongst which one is maximum. And next time you run a linear scan on these n by 2 elements. Then that linear scan will take how many comparisons? Actually n by 2 minus 1, right? So now your overall number of comparisons will become n by 2 plus n by 2 minus 1, which is n minus 1 comparisons. Okay. So why I introduce this particular concept to you will be clear to you in the next few slides. Okay. So till now we were just focusing on finding the maximum in an array, or maybe the minimum in an array. What if you have to find both? So I give you an array like this, 12, 1, 8, 18. It's shown to you here. And now you want to figure out both maximum as well as minimum. How many comparisons will you make? There are many techniques to do this. So the very first idea which comes to my mind is, you scan this array first time and you figure out which is the maximum element. You again do a scan and you figure out which is the minimum element. That is, you separately run your algorithms for finding the max and the min. So algorithm for finding your max will take n minus 1 comparisons. That for finding the min will also take n minus 1 comparisons, and when you add both of these, it will come out to be 2n minus 2 comparisons in total. So this was the first idea, where you run 2 linear scans. Okay. Let's come to the second idea. So what can be your second idea?
Just a correction. Yeah, so after you have found the max, then you don't need to do n minus 1 comparisons. You can work with the n minus 2. You can ignore the max.
Okay, so what Sanatan is saying, you can make it all the more efficient. So what we are currently doing is, you do one scan and you figure out which is the max in n minus 1 comparisons. So next time for finding the min, I need not consider all the elements. I already know which is the maximum element. So you can just leave that out and find the minimum on the remaining n minus 1 elements, which will take you n minus 2 comparisons. And actually you can optimize it to 2n minus 3. Okay, any other idea? Can we make it more efficient? Okay, what if we apply that tournament method which we discussed above here? So can we improve this? So till now we are having 2n minus 3 comparisons. So let's try to see how we can use the tournament method to reduce it from 2n minus 3. So your linear algorithm gives you 2n minus 3 comparisons. What I'll have to do if I want to do it with the tournament method? See, I compare these two elements. I need only one comparison to figure out which is the minimum here and which is the max. So minimum here you will get 1, max here you will get 12. Again, in one comparison, you can find the minimum and maximum here. In one comparison, minimum and maximum here, so on and so forth, right? So how many comparisons it took me till now? Till now I had n by 2 comparisons to find the min and the max. What I can do in the next step now? In the next step, finding the minimum and maximum, how many comparisons will it take? So amongst these elements, now I want to find which are the min and which are the max. So you will have to compare this 1 with 8 here and 12 with 18 here. So I'll have to do 2 comparisons per pair. So I find out minimum is 1 here and maximum is 18 here. Similarly, minimum is 2 here and maximum is 80 here. So how many comparisons did I do at the second layer? For the first layer, it was n by 2, right? So if you'll think about it for some 15 seconds, you will realize that at any particular step here, you are going to do the number of comparisons which are actually equal to the number of elements here. How? So I'm having n by 2 elements. So if you remember, if I was only finding the max, so we were doing n by 4 comparisons here, right? But here we are finding both max and min. So we'll actually be doing n by 4 into 2, which is n by 2 comparisons again at the next step. If you will figure out what at the next step will happen, at the next step, again, you will be doing n by 4 comparisons. At the next step, you will be doing n by 8 comparisons. And when you will add all of this up, you will get n by 2 plus n by 2 plus n by 4 plus n by 8, so on and so forth, right? And we know that this entire term, it will add up to n. So you are actually doing it in 1.5 n time, which is better than these 2n minus 3 comparisons. So this way you can use this tournament method to reduce the complexity here. You can you can also again use a combination of your linear and tournament here, how we have done it for max. In the first iteration, again a min and a max, min and the max, min and the max, min and the max, right? And after that, again, instead of doing the entire circus of tournament, what can we do here? I know that my minimum element is going to be 1 from these 4. And my maximum element is going to be 1 from these 4. So here I do a linear run. So here I do a linear run to find out which is the minimum among these elements. So how many elements I was having here? N by 2. So I'll require almost n by 2 comparisons. You can say n by 2 minus 1. Similarly here, I know my max element is one of these elements. So to find the max again, n minus 2 minus n by 2 minus 1. So again, your total number of comparisons will be n by 2 for this first step, then almost n by 2 here and almost n by 2 here. So again, something like 1.5 n. So this is how you can use a combination of both of these to reduce the complexity. Okay. I won't say complexity, I would say the number of comparisons. If you look at the complexity of all these algorithms, it is still order of n. Let's try to answer one more similar question. Now, what if you have to find the maximum and the, the largest and the second largest element in an array? How much time, in how many comparisons can you do? And let's try to minimize this number of comparisons. Again, if you go by your most basic approach, so your most basic approach would be, so just we discussed it few minutes back, you can actually run here 2 runs of bubble sort. So in the first run of bubble sort, your maximum element will bubble here at the end, which will be 80. And if you do one more run of bubble sort, your second maximum element will come at the second last position. And how many comparisons will it take? So for the first run of bubble sort, n minus 1. For the second run of bubble sort, n minus 2. So it's going out to be 2n minus 3 for finding the maximum and the second maximum, largest and the second largest element. So here I'm running these comparisons 2 times. Is there a better way to do this? So what if I use 2 variables instead? Let me take 2 variables, one for the largest and one for the second largest. And what you can do is, in largest, I can compare these initial 2 elements, keep, let's say, 12 as the largest and 1 as the second largest. Then starting from this third element, I can start my comparisons. So what I can do, I look at this third element, I see that if it is smaller than both largest and second largest, I do nothing. If it is greater than both your largest and second largest, so your largest will take, let's say this element was 80. So your largest will become this particular element and your second largest will become your old largest. right? And if it was in between the two, between the largest and the second largest, then your largest will remain the same and second largest will take the value of this particular element. You can think about that. But how many comparisons will it take? So even if you analyze this algorithm, you can take some time to analyze it. If you have some doubt, you can always contact us. So if you look at it and if you analyze it, it's also going to take around 2n minus 3 comparisons. So it does not make any difference to our previous comparison. Okay. Can you think of some other way to better this? I'll just remove all this over here. Can you think of if whether I can use the tournament method here to better this? So I would like to visualize, I would like you to visualize this entire array as nothing but I would like to visualize, I would like you to visualize this array. Let's say all these elements which are present here are certain chess players. And each number here represents the skill of a chess player. Just give me a second. I'm just unable to write on this. Okay, so I'm giving you some time. Can you just think about how can you use this tournament approach to better this, finding the largest and the second largest element in an array? Okay, so if you look at it here, what can you do? So you know that while finding the maximum element from the tournament way, what you have done? You have seen the maximum of these two elements, which was 12, maximum of these two, which was 18, then maximum of these two, which was 11 and 80, right? And then we looked at the maximum of these two, maximum of these two, and then the maximum of these two. So I got my largest element here. This tree kind of structure which I have formed over here, can I use it in some way to find the second largest? So definitely the one way of finding second largest is now you keep this largest aside and repeat the same algorithm. So when you repeat the same algorithm, you will be again making certain comparisons here. But you can utilize the result of already performed calculations. So
Ma'am,
here,
if we start from the second stage of the tree, and then we find this, and we find the largest over there, and then compare it to the largest elements pair in the first. I'm not sure if it will help. It's just an idea.
Yeah. So that's exactly the approach. So what you do, you know that if you talk about the second largest element in this entire tree, the second largest element is nothing but it was your second best player. So we know that the second best player, if he would have lost somewhere in this entire tree, so let's say this entire tree is telling you who won. So when you played a game between 12 and 1, 12 won, here 18 won, then 11 won, 80 won, so on and so forth. So we know that this second largest element, it would have lost only to your largest element. If it was some other element, it would have won. So what you can do is you can just backtrack this tree and you can look at which were the elements with which were the players with which this best player had matches with. So if you look at it, you will realize that 80 had a match with 18 over here, 80 had a match with 11 over here, and with 38 over here. So definitely your second largest element is one among these three candidates, right? So now your list is just reduced to these three elements over here, and you can find which is the maximum in these three. So that is your second largest element. So how many comparisons have you done? So definitely in finding this max over here, we have done almost n comparisons. And what about the second max? So the number of comparisons you will do to find the second largest element is equal to number of elements in this list over here, right? Maybe minus one of that. So I'm going to do a linear scan of this list over here to find the second largest. So the number of comparisons is equal to the size of this list. And what will be the size of this list? It will be the depth of this tree, right? So one from here, at maximum, it will be the depth of this tree, right? Then the depth of this tree is nothing but your log n. So you have reduced the number of comparisons here. This tournament algorithm which we just talked about, it's a classic example of a recursive problem. So till now we have looked at it in an iterative sense. So you can also think about it recursively. So in order to do that, I'll give you a brief recap of what recursion is. And we'll also discuss how can you frame some of the important questions in data structures as your recursive problems. If I'm going, so I'm going a bit fast. If you want me to slow down at any point in time, you can let me know. Let's understand the basic idea of recursion. So for that, I just want to give you a real life scenario. Assume you went to the stadium to watch a movie. Let's say it's a theater, and you are sitting here at the last row in this theater. So this is here where you are sitting, and you want to know how many rows are there in front of you. So what will you do? I want to know how many rows in front of me. How many rows are there in front of me? So how will you do that? So there are two ways of doing this. Definitely the one idea is just stand up and move forward. As and when you encounter a new row, just add one to the count, right? So I just stand up, go to the front of the hall, and as and when I see a new row, I increase the number of rows by one. So that's an iterative approach. What can be the recursive approach to do this? So what I would say, whenever you are doing recursion, you think of it as you are outsourcing a problem to someone. So let's say I'm sitting here at the last, in the last row, and I am too lazy to stand up. I want somebody else to do my work. What can I do? So I can just ask the person who is sitting in front of me, how many rows are there in front of him. And I know that if this person tells me how many rows are there in front of him, I can just add one to it and my work is done. So what I'm going to do, I'll minimize my work by asking this person who is sitting next to me, how many rows are there in front of you. So let's say person P1, and I ask him how many rows are there in front of you. And again, since it's a recursive algorithm, we'll assume that everyone in the room is lazy and smart. So what this other person will do, again, instead of going around the hall, he will just poke the person in front of him, and he knows that if the person in front of him tells him how many rows are there, he's just going to add one to it. So on and so forth, that this chain will start in the room and it will keep going. So till where it will go? When you reach the front row. So all these people are poking each other, and when you ask this last person who is in the front row, how many rows are there in front of you, he'll say that 0, because there is nothing in front of him. So that is what we call the base case. So at the end, when there is nothing in front of a person, that is base case, and he says 0. And this answer, it comes back to you, and you get your original answer with the help of this chain. So that is what is recursion. And how can you think recursively about a problem? So all of you know about this factorial problem. I'll just quickly go through it. So let's say I'm here sitting at the end of this room and I want to know what is 10 factorial. I know that if this person in front of me tells me what is 9 factorial, I just have to multiply a 10. So I just poke him and I ask him what is 9 factorial, and whatever answer he'll give to me, I'm just going to multiply a 10 with it. This person will again poke the person in front of him, asking him 8 factorial. So it is exactly the same process which we talked previously. And in this way, your answer will come back to you. Okay. Let's try to see how we can bring recursion into practice with some of the problems which we were discussing before. So let's talk about searching in an array. So all of us know the linear way of searching in an array in n-1, n comparisons. It will require you n comparisons. So whatever element you want to search for, you will start comparing it linearly with each and every element, and you are done. How we can do it in a recursive way? So if you think about it in a recursive way, you have given me an array and you have given me an element, and you want me to search this element in the array. again, and I'm too lazy to do this. I don't want to search on my own. What I'll do, this is the array you have given me. I'm going to divide this array into half, and I'll give this array, this one to the person who is on the left of me, and this one to the person who is in the right of me. And I'll ask them, search this element in the array and tell me whether you find it or not. So I have divided my work in chunks of half and half and distributed it to these two people. And these two people are again going to do the same. At their end, they will again divide the array which is given to them in two halves, and they will ask again two people. Okay, you can see these people as diagonally left and right, because if the person who is to the left of me is going to do this, he'll give it back to me. So assume that I'm giving it to the person who are sitting diagonally left and right to me in the row which is in front of me. So the whole idea is, this person, I give it to two people. These two people again give it to back to again two people, so on and so forth. So what will be the base case here? So base case here will be one person who is given just one element. So this array is breaking into 2 and 2 at every time. So a time will come when there will be only one element in this array. And the base case will be, you give this array of size 1 to a person and you ask him to search the element, right? How will you actually implement it? At the end, what we want, so when we are searching an element, the end result which we generally want is the index of the element which we are searching. But if I'm going to break this array into half and half and give two different arrays to these, I will never get the index. So what we generally do is, instead of breaking the array and giving two sub arrays to these people, we write it as something like, so I have the element which I want to search, and a beginning location and an end location. So I am passing this entire array to these two people, but I am telling them from where to start searching and from where to end. So initially when I pass this array, I was given, let's say, beginning as 0. I'm sorry. Where I was. Okay, here. Yeah. So I was given this beginning and 0, and let's say this end as 256. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to pass this entire array to two people, but one person I'll ask him to search from 0 to 128, and the other one will be searching it from 129 to 256. Similarly, this person will divide it into two halves, ask first person to do it from 0 to 64, other one to do it from 65 to 128, so on and so forth. So that's how you do a recursive search. What will be the number of comparisons here? What will be the number of comparisons here? So who is doing the comparison? This person over here, me, I'm not doing any comparison. I'm just breaking it into two halves and giving it to two people. Again, those nodes in the middle, these people, these are again not doing any comparison. They are again breaking it into half and giving it to other two people. So if you look at it carefully, the people who are doing comparisons, they are the one which are your leaf nodes. So let me just draw it here. If this was your entire array, I broke it into half, gave it to two people. These again gave it to two people. So at the end, there will be leaves where each of these people will be given an array of, in general, they will be given the entire array, but they will only have to search that element in just one particular place. So actually it will be like this. If you look at this leaf node, this will be one person who will be asked to search it from the location 0 to 0. That he just have to compare this element with the 0th location. This one will compare that element to the first location. This person over here will compare it to the second location, so on and so forth. So even in this case, if you see, the number of comparisons which are going to be done is actually n, right? But we have just tried to write it down recursively. So where it actually helps is in your binary search. So as you already know, so binary search is nothing, but you see is a special case of this search, which we just talked about. So let's say when I was given this array and I was dividing it into half and giving it to these two people, right? What I was doing here, now if you tell me that the array which you have given me is nothing, but it is in sorted order, right? So I can actually reduce the workload here. how I can reduce it? As you know, so here I'll be having some element sitting in the middle. So whatever element I have to search for here, I'm going to compare it with this middle element over here. And if I know this element is less than this, it is going to be here. If it is greater than the middle element, it's going to be here. So actually now what I do, instead of giving this work to 2 people, I just give it to 1 person. So I compare this element and I see whether it's in the left half or the right half. If it is in the left half, I give it to 1 person and I ask him, okay, you figure out which is the, where is this element which I'm searching. And this person again, what he will do, again giving it to 2 people, instead what he will do, compare this element to the mid here. And let's say this time this element is bigger than the mid. He just removes this portion and he gives this to another person. Okay, you figure out where is the element here. So if you look at this particular process over here, so what is happening here is actually exactly half of what was happening before. So before, the half portion got removed from here. So half of the comparisons are removed. You don't have to do these half comparisons. Again, here you don't have to do these comparisons. So at every step when you go down, you get rid of half of the comparisons. And that's why when you look at it, you will end up doing log n comparisons. If you have any doubt, you can always stop me and ask. So we are just trying to give you a quick recap of everything. Okay. Let me talk about an interesting problem. So here is your code for binary search. So let's assume that I'm an interviewer and now I'm asking you this question. So I have a problem at hand. So this is a real life problem. And the problem is I am giving you certain coins. I'm giving you some coins and let's say these all are gold coins. And definitely I'm going to give them to you in an array. So this is an array. It's going to have some gold coins, right? All these gold coins, they should weigh, let's say 50 grams, right? But among these gold coins, there is exactly one coin which is less than 50 grams. So I have all coins here which are of 50 gram, and at any one location you can have one coin which is less than 50 grams. So we call this the counterfeit coin, right? And then I want you to figure out which is this coin, this counterfeit coin over here. But in order to do so, so definitely one way you can do it is to run a linear scan and figure out which is the coin. But assume that you do not have an instrument which tells you the exact weight of these coins. So what I'm going to do, I am going to give you a function, or let's say I'm going to give you a scale. So in this scale, at any point in time, you can keep certain coins here and certain coins here. So you can keep any number of coins here, any number of coins here. And what this scale is going to tell you is which side is lighter and which side is heavier. Or even if they are equal, it will tell you that both the sides are equal, right? So at any point in time, you can keep these coins from this inside this scale. So definitely if you're going to write it in C as a function, this will be a function. And to this function, you can actually pass maybe 2 arrays and it will return you the sum of which of these arrays is less. So that's how you can implement the scale function. Assume that this scale function is given to you. Okay. So here is the scale which is given to you. You can keep these coins in any of the part, right? Okay. What you have to do is you have to, in minimum number of comparisons, you have to tell which is the counterfeit coin. Is the problem clear? If something is not clear, please ask me. So I am just pushing this idea in your mind. You can even think about it later. So here you are given a function, and to this function you can pass certain coins and it will tell you which part is lesser or which array is lighter, right? And using this, you have to tell which is the counterfeit coin. So the idea over here is one idea. So what is the one most naive idea to do this is you keep first coin here and second coin here, and you see whether one is lighter among them or not. If they are equal, you keep the third one here and fourth one here. Then you keep the fifth one here and sixth one here. So on and so forth, right? And as soon as you see that there is a case where one coin is lighter than the other, you are done. But this will require you using this scale n by 2 times. But we want you to use this scale as less times as possible. So what you can do is, so I'm going to tell you the approach and you think about how you can code this. So the approach is, instead of putting one coin here, I'm going to again divide this array into half. I'm going to keep the first half here and the second half here, right? And this scale will tell me which side is lighter. So I'll come to know whether this lighter coin is in this part of the array or in this part of the array. And when I figure out which part is the lighter coin in, so assume that I get it is in this part of the array, I'll directly discard all these coins. And again, I'll divide it into 2 parts, keep the first part here and second part here. And you will keep repeating this process. So here is a code of binary search. So as a homework exercise, what I would like you to do is you think about if you are given this problem. So this array is given to you. Like you are given an array in the binary search, and you have to figure out which is the counterfeit coin by introducing some of the changes to this binary search algorithm over here. So it's going to be an exactly similar algorithm where you are given an array A, you are given the starting index and this ending index over here. So definitely there is no X over here because we are not searching anything. So these are the 3 parameters given to you. How can you modify this function over here so that you get this counterfeit coin? So I'll just leave this as a homework exercise and I'll move on. Okay, let's just look at this. So we were talking about this previously and we have looked at it as an iterative algorithm. So finding the maximum of a number in an array, how can we formulate it as a recursive algorithm? Can you think about it? So previously we have looked at it as an iterative approach where we took pairs of 2 and every time we were comparing those 2 and then the resultants, so on and so forth. How can we formulate it as a recursive algorithm? So I have to find this. I'm given max. I have to write a function max which takes as argument a and then a beginning and then an end. Right? So initially your beginning is 0 and end is n minus 1. So what should be the body of this function so that I can formulate it as a recursive one? We want to look at this as a recursive problem. So thinking in the same way as we thought about before. So what I can do is again think that you have given this array to me and you want me to find out what is the maximum element. So instead of doing any work myself, I'm going to break this array into half, give this to one person, give this to another person, and I'll ask both of these people, okay, you figure out what are your maximums, and my work is not over. When these 2 people give me what is their maximum, I again want to find the maximum, but I will have to compute the maximum of only 2 elements. So what this is going to return, so this is a straightforward recursive procedure. So this one is going to return you max of what? Max of again 2 maxes. So this max is, I am going to write it as maximum here because I'm going to compare it only on 2 elements. My function is max here. So this maximum function compares 2 elements and gives me what is the maximum. So this maximum is going to do only one comparison over here, right? And I have given the same work to 2 other people. So what will the first one do? The first one will find the maximum from your beginning to mid. So you can define mid over here. So mid is nothing but your beginning plus end by 2. So think about it. And the second person will find the max from your mid plus 1 to end. Okay. So here you have written a recursive call for this entire thing. So when you look at this. So if you think about the implementation of this, how it is going to be. So this is the array which I received, and I have to figure out the maximum of it, right? So I have passed it to two people. So the first one computes the maximum of this, and the second one computes the maximum of this, right? So I'm going to do max of this particular array here and this one over here, right? And again, what this person is going to do, this person is, if I write it down, so I'm going to do maximum of 12, 1, 8, 18, comma 2, 11, 80, comma 38, right? And again, what this one will call, this one is going to call maximum of 12, 1 and 8, 18. This one is going to call maximum of 2, 11, 80, 38, right? Okay. When you have to compute the maximum of these two, so this one is your base case. So base case is when your array has just 2 elements, when you have to find the max of just 2 elements, that is your base case. So this person over here, he gets the base case and he returns the maximum, that the maximum of these two is 12, right? So I'm going to write the reverse part of here. So this person returns 12, this function returns 18, and this one returns 11, this one returns 38. Now this person over here will return maximum of 12 and 18 to this, right? So this person over here will return 18 here. This person will return maximum of 11 and 38. So if you look at it, I'm sorry, 80. If you look at this, it is exactly similar to that iterative process, right? So the first part of it was breaking it down. Second part of it is building up. So this building up part here is exactly similar to that iterative approach which we have done. So this one returns 80 here, and this first person here have just to look at the max of 18 and 80, which is 80. Just the last example for your recursive procedure, which is your merge sort. So merge sort is exactly, now I want to do sorting again, which is recursive in exactly the same way how I'm doing till now. So what we want to do is, I want to sort this entire array. So again, what I'm going to do, instead of sorting it, I'll divide it into half, give it to one person, sort it, and give this part to another person to sort it. So the person one returns me the sorted part of this half of array, person two returns me the sorted part of this half array. Do I need to do something? So definitely there is one more step I need to do. So what I'm going to do, let's say I am this merge sort procedure over here, and I have to merge an array A whose beginning is this and whose end is this, right? Then I know what I need to do is, I want to have a new array, let's say A1, which is the result of merge sort of the first half of this array, right? So this is the first half which I'm passing to the first person. This is the second half which so this is P1, person one who is going to do this work. This is person two who is going to do this work for me. So he is going to sort the second part of this array. So I got A1 and A2 which are sorted. So after I got A1 and A2 which are sorted, I again need to do something. So I have two sorted arrays here. So one is this one over here, and one is this one over here, right? And if I want to get the entire sorted array, I'll have to apply one more procedure here, which we called as merge A1, A2. So this is what I'm going to return, merge of A1, A2. And what this merge procedure does, it's a simple procedure. So you are given two arrays here. It keeps two pointers, one here and one here, right? And it creates a third array out of these. So what I want is, I know both of these are sorted. I want to arrange them in the proper order. So you compare 1 with 2. So whichever is lighter, you keep that here and you increment this pointer by 1. Now you compare 8 with 2. 2 is lighter, keep 2 here, increment this pointer by 1. Compare 8 and 11. 8 is lighter, keep it, increment this pointer by 1. So when you keep repeating this procedure, you get this merge over here. So this is what I'm going to return. And again, these two people who are sorting these individual arrays, they are again going to do the same, right? So can you now think about the complexity of merge sort? What is it going to be? Okay, I'll again leave that as a homework exercise. So in order to figure out the complexity of merge sort, what you require, so you need to look at what is the complexity of this procedure here. So you are calling merge at every step, right? How many comparisons this merge is going to make? So you figure out how many comparisons this merge is going to take, and the number of comparisons it is making, it will vary at every recursive call, right? So for this particular case, it's going to be almost 8 comparisons here, 8 or 7. So every time this number of comparisons will reduce. So as me, I'm the first person here, I'm going to do 8 comparisons for this merging process. But this person here who is sorting this particular part, he will be doing only 4 comparisons. How? You should look at that particular thing in your, so you should analyze it and look at it. So when you look at it, you will actually end up getting n log n. From where this n log n comes, so you will realize that when you are doing this merge process at every recursive call, so this entire merge process actually takes n steps, n comparisons. And since again the depth of this tree is going to be log n, you get this log n from there. Okay, I'll move on to the next problem. So till now we have talked about the first largest and second largest element. What if I want you to figure out what is the kth largest element? Any ideas to do that? Which is the kth largest element? Definitely one approach is you sort your array, which will take n log n time, and after sorting you pick up, you directly have the index. Since you want the kth largest element, you can figure it out. So you can sort it in a descending order, and after sorting it in a descending order, you can pick up ak minus 1, I guess. So that will be your kth largest element. But this one will require you n log n time. What is another way to find which is the kth largest element? Another way to do it is run your bubble sort for k times. So when you do your bubble sort for k times, so in the first time your maximum element bubbles up at the last place. Second time your second largest element comes at the second largest place, so on and so forth. So in the kth iteration, your kth largest element will come to the kth last position. So how many comparisons have you done? So you are running bubble sort k times. So first time you are going to make n minus 1 comparisons, second time n minus 2, so on and so forth. In the last time, n minus k. Right? So if you look at it, it's going to be of the order of nk. Now if you talk about implementing bubble sort k times. So we are going to, especially for this problem, we are going to look at a large number of approaches based on the time which is left with us. Okay. Do you think we can utilize any other sorting based method for finding the kth largest element? So this one which we have done, this was based on bubble sort and it took order of k and time. So can you use some other sorting method to find this kth largest element and reduce this time, reduce this number of comparisons? So there is this heap sort which is used to done this, and at this point in time I just hand over to Sanatan so that he can quickly go through these.
Hi guys, I can understand that. I mean, most of you would be sleepy by now. But if you're still awake, I mean, can someone confirm? Hey guys, are you there?
Yeah, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want, to take a break for like 2 minutes, or do you want me to continue?
So what time is it session till, sir?
Okay. It is still 7. There is no mandatory requirement for you to stay. I'm being honest here.
I was just asking because I had some work after that, just for that.
Okay. Anyways, till now, if you have any questions, do let us know. I can understand that. There are a lot of topics that we had to cover, and we only covered. Only a few. In the remaining slides, I have like 30 odd topics. But still, since looking at the time requirements, I would request you guys to like clear all your doubts to whatever has been covered so far. We'll just I will see. It would be better if we just take a recap of the slides. So I'm just going to give you a quick recap. Okay, our plan was to do a lot, but I don't think we even covered like the whole of sorting and searching. There are a lot more variants to cover. We had to cover, heap sort, quick sort, radix sort. So just one question I would ask you guys. So you have read like tons of algorithms, and let's make it interactive for the last 5 to 10 minutes. So you have read like tons of algorithms, in your algorithms course. So if I give you a set of numbers to sort, what do you think the best algorithm is?
Sir, it depends on the size of the algorithm, sir.
Size of the algorithm?
Yeah, the number of entries in the
Okay. Let me just show you what the array is, and then maybe you can tell me. So let me just give you a sample array, which is say 3, 5, 6, 8. So I have like 1-digit numbers. So all numbers are just 1 digit, and I have say million such numbers.
So I think for that it will be heap sort would be the best.
Why not? Okay, you know of the complexity of like heap sort? Do you remember the complexity?
Not sure.
Okay.
Sir,
so far, yeah.
We could just use an array of 10, and then we could go through that array and then decrement, so it will become O of n.
Yeah, correct.
Because all are single-digit numbers.
Correct. So what I didn't see who was speaking. So whosoever was speaking just now, he was talking about actually doing counting instead of making comparisons. So if you remember, the very first thing that we discussed was if you do comparisons to sort the numbers, so then that particular algorithm takes minimum of n log n time. However, if I want to do this task, what you could do is simple counting. So you know that all the numbers, they, in this particular array, they are, between 0 to 9, right? So what you do is you create an array of size 10, numbers from 0 to 9. You just simply do a linear search. So all these numbers that I have, I simply see. So I have seen 3 ones. So I'll have a counter corresponding to say 3, and I'll add a 1 there. So all these numbers are initialized to zeros. So initially all of them are zeros. As soon as I see a 3, I say that I've seen 1 3. So I've added, I have initialized this 3 was 3 with 0. And now I'm adding 1 to it because I've seen a 3. Now I move on to the next number. I saw a 5. So corresponding to 5, I add a 1. Similarly, I saw a 6. So corresponding to 6, I'll add a 1. And then 8. Then I'll add a 1 again to 8. Now, if I see a 6 again, I can increase the counter by 1. So now the new value would be 2. So for all such, millions of numbers I have, I will just create a counter list for each and every number that I have. Okay. Now, the simplest way to prove it, or let's say the simplest way to print out the sorted array would be, you simply see this sorted list. So let's say I'm just going to take a sample of this, so let me call this array as count array, which stores the count of each and every number in the original array. So let's say that 0 was there like 5 times, 1 was there 2 times, 3 was there 4 times. So, I mean, if I want to print this array in the ascending order, what I can do is I can print 0 5 times. Similarly, I can print 1 2 times. Similarly, I can print 2 4 times. So in this way, you can actually print out the sorted numbers from this million such numbers. Now, what is the complexity of this? So all we did was in a linear scan of, let's say the number of elements were n. So in a linear scan, I filled this array. So exactly n time was taken to scan this array. So this is n. Now I stored the count array with k elements, or rather in this particular example, I stored with say 10 elements from 0 to 9. For displaying all the elements here, I would have to go through each and every element. So I went through say the 0th element and saw and repeated this value. Say if this value was p, I repeated this value 0 p times. Similarly, I repeated the value q, repeated the value 1 q times. So I did this, right? So while displaying the sorted order, I just printed out this count array. How many times? K times. So the total complexity of this algorithm is order n plus k. And so k is actually a very small number, which is just 10. So, if you look at this whole algorithm, the complexity would be order n. Now, all the algorithms that you have seen so far, they are, the best ones so far, they are order n log n. Just because you do comparison-based algorithms, just because you have like comparisons to identify which number is smaller and which number is larger. And I just showed you, in the very beginning, that if you do comparisons, then you cannot do better than n log n. Now, this particular algorithm does not do, comparisons of any kind. It just counts the numbers, right? So, so this algorithm is more commonly known as radix sort, also known as counting sort. So counting sort is the one actually, this algorithm's, true name is counting sort. Radix sort is like another variant of it where you have, multi-digit numbers. So let's say if this number was 345, this was say 501. So how do you sort, numbers that have multiple digits? So there, you can extend the same idea by sorting on LSB first, but then you have to ensure that stability is there. Similarly, then you sort on the next least significant bit, and so on and so forth, you will move on to the most significant bit. In this way, you can sort for multi-bit numbers as well. Okay, so we discussed a few of these algorithms. We talked about the complexity. We talked about, okay, do you guys have, I'm just going through the slides. If you have any questions at any point in time, do let me know. We discussed about bubble sort. What problems it has, how can we make it better? Then we discussed about insertion sort. We also, I also showed you that if you, if you have a nearly sorted array, then insertion sort would be, the best possible sorting algorithm that you have. So if I'm talking about real applications where, let's say you already have sorted data with you, and as soon as the new data comes in, so if you want to have such an application where you add new data to an already sorted array, so there there you would prefer this insertion sort algorithm because it takes the minimum number of comparisons. So that would be a practical application for this. And it is even better than your, merge sort and all those other algorithms. So yeah, and if the, we also discussed that if the algorithm was already sorted, then you don't have to do more than n-1 comparisons with bubble sort as well as with insertion sort. Yeah, we talked about how to find maximum, minimum. We showed you like tons of variants. I mean, there are like other variants out there, but okay, let me just give you one useful algorithm. I mean, which might be asked in your competition. Okay, let me just show you one algorithm. Okay, rather I'll do this here. So let's say you have a particular array. I'll just discuss this algorithm very briefly. This algorithm is known as median of medians. I apologize for my writing. I don't have very good handwriting, sorry. So, so this algorithm, let's say, has n numbers from A1 to AN. And if I ask you to give me the kth largest number, so there are several variants out there. You can use the existing algorithms that we discussed to find the kth largest number. But none of these algorithms can do it in linear time. This is the only algorithm that can help you do it in linear time. So I'll just tell you the working of this algorithm and we'll talk about the complexity, I mean, very briefly. So what you do is you make buckets of 5. So each bucket that you see is a bucket of 5 elements. So and what you do is after, so every, so let's say if these are a total of n elements, so I have n by 5 buckets. Now the next goal is you sort each of these buckets individually. So because there are constant number of elements, only 5 elements in each bucket. So you can use any sorting algorithm that you want. Even if you do not want to do sorting, what you do is you can, so let's say what we want with these buckets is, so an element, say AX here, or rather, let me just write it clearly. So if there is element, so I want say an element X here. So the elements say A and B should be less than this X. And elements say M and N should be greater than X. So I want these M and N should be greater than X and A and B to be smaller than X. You can do it with a sorting algorithm or you can do any comparison based procedure to achieve this task. So after you have done this for all these 5 buckets, so after you do this for all these 5 buckets, what you do is, okay, let me just make it more clear. So after you have done the sorting, or let's say the arrangement that I asked you to do for each of these 5 buckets, for each of these buckets of 5 elements, you pick up the middle element from each bucket and find the median recursively, or you can say, so if you look at any bucket, the element in the middle is actually the median, right? So I mean, 2 of the elements are smaller than it and 2 of the elements are bigger than it. So it is actually the median in this, in every bucket. Now what I want to find is median of all these medians. So after you find median of all these medians, what you do is, so let's say if this median was say P. So buckets having median less than P. So let's say if this is the bucket where this median P is there. So buckets having less than median P would be placed here, and buckets having more than median P would be placed here. So once you have done this procedure, what you can do is, I mean, what you can see is that, I mean, all the elements that are here, rather, let me just change the color. So all the elements which are in this part, they are actually less than this median P. Similarly, all the elements that are in this part, this part, they are greater than this median P. So if you ask me to find out, say, the 100th element in an array of, say, size, say 500. If you look at each of these partitions that I have, so here you would have 125 elements. Here you would have 125 elements. Now I am pretty sure that 125 elements are less than this median P and 125 elements are greater than this median P. Now remaining ones I am unsure about. So what I can do is I can take these elements one by one and compare with this, the median P here. So some of these elements would go to this partition, which would be less than this P, and some of them would go to the higher partition where the elements would be greater than P. So let's say after doing this task, if I have, say, 300 elements in the less than partition and 200 elements in the higher partition, and if you ask me to find the 100th, say, largest element, so I have to search in this particular partition, because I know that I know that the top 300 elements are in this partition, and if I'm looking for I have to look in this particular partition because I am checking for the 100th largest element. So I know that all the elements which are greater than this P are in here. So definitely the top 100th element would be in this partition because the top 200 elements lie here. So you can ignore this. So effectively what this algorithm is doing, this algorithm actually discards, this algorithm actually discards at least n by 4 elements, which can go up to 3n by 4. With a max of 3n by 4. The idea being, with the median of medians identified, all the elements can either go to the lower partition or the higher partition. You already know that before you find out the median of medians, n by 4 elements were there which were less than median, n by 4 which were greater than median. About the rest of these n by 4 elements, you were unsure about. So they can either go to this partition or they can also go to this partition. So at each iteration, you are actually removing n by 4 elements. So if you write down the recursion, this would look something like this. And if you remember the Master's theorem, where you compute the complexity, this would turn out to be some order n. So the idea being, and this value actually, it can range from n by 4 to 3n by 4. Even with 3n by 4 here, this complexity would be order n. So this is the only algorithm, out there in the literature where you can have a, order n algorithm for, searching for the kth largest element. So, I hope that some of you would be, they could get what this algorithm is doing. If you have any questions, do let me know. If you don't, I think we can end the session right here. Any questions, guys? Even we can talk about the previous topics. Okay, guys. So thank you for attending. Yeah, take care. Good night. If you have any questions, if you have any questions, you can email us. I'm just writing down the ID.
Sir, what about tomorrow?
I think Dr. Rajesh should be taking the session at the same time.
Okay. I think Rajesh sir is here. Sir, what would you be covering tomorrow?
I will let you know in the email.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Take care. Good night, and best of luck for the competition.
So just a minute. So where can we find the recordings for the previous 2 sessions for this of this meeting?
I don't have that with me.
No, we didn't record previous sessions actually. Because whoever were coming, they were coming, and not many students were there. So it didn't occur to us, and no one asked about any recording.
So actually, because we did not get the link for these meetings until today. I mean, at least me, I could not find the link for the meeting. So I thought if we had the recording. All right, sir. No issues. Thank you.
How come
Sir,
you didn't get? You are in 4th year CSE?
No, sir. Third year, sir. CSC.
Yeah, we sent it only to 4th year students.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's why probably you didn't get it.
Right.
Okay, guys, take care. Good night.